Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Wednesday, April 12th, and I come to you on the day that Justin Pearson will face a vote on whether he will be reelected to his position as state representative in Tennessee. If what we saw on Monday was any indication of what's to come, not only do I think it will happen, but it will show the nation yet again that Republicans unleash something they won't be able to rein back in any time soon. And today we're going to talk about Tennessee and something I'm very interested in getting into, which is how social media and new platforms are changing the way that young people consume and receive news and information. And joining me to do that is Cenk Uygur, who is the creator of the Young Turks, which is something that's doing phenomenal work reaching young people. Cenk, I've long admired your work. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Victor. Appreciate it, brother.
So there's so much to talk about when it comes to young voters, but I have to start off with the scene that we're seeing in Tennessee because Justin Jones and Justin Pearson are among the youngest people in the state legislature. They're Black. And when you look at the brazenness with which the Republicans have acted over the past kind of couple of weeks, I'm wondering, what does it tell you about how much of a threat they view young people?
Yeah. So I love that you're asking that question. There's two different factors here.
Yeah.
One is the clash of cultures that's happening. And so that clash of cultures has a lot to do with race when you talk about Trump and the overall era that we're going through. And the era is that now there are a lot more minorities in the country, a lot more Latinos in the country. It's become much more diverse. And for right wingers who were white Christian males, etc., they're used to being in charge. They're used to having power exclusively. And so now when they have to share power, which by the way makes sense because we live in a democracy,
right?
We're all supposed to share power, right? But for them, that feels like they've become victims because they felt entitled to all of the power. So that's why in Tennessee, you're seeing those right-wing legislators go, what? Now we're going to let these young Black guys speak? No, don't let them speak. Don't even let them be in the building. Kick them out of their jobs as representatives, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that cultural divide. But the even larger cultural divide is between the young and the old. And the number one reason for that is because the young did not grow up on TV. They grew up online. And so that media is the culture. So, and I'm in the older group. So in the older group, we grew up on TV and it was pulp. It was just people regurgitating corporate propaganda as if it's news. And we were all supposed to love the status quo. And we're supposed to love that nothing ever gets done. And corporate rule is great and all that stuff. Now, younger people who grow up online say, no, I don't like it at all. I hate it. And so we're having trouble communicating with one another because older people don't understand younger people at all. I remember the number one question I used to get in 2016 is, why do young people like Bernie Sanders? I don't understand. And they were genuine. They really had no idea because to them, like, he's not well coiffed. He doesn't have all the fake political plastic stuff. They didn't get it. They're like, and he's not even young because they think in terms of identity politics, etc. But young people weren't looking for someone that looked just like them. They were looking for someone who was honest and who was actually going to fight for them. And to the old guard, that's unthinkable. And so young people are coming. And now in elections, even Scott Walker in Wisconsin complained, Jesus, we're getting outvoted by 40 points among the young. And Joe Biden, I don't know if he knows this, the only reason he won was because of the younger voters in 2020.
I mean, Kellyanne Conway was also on Fox the other day, and she was saying, she was baffled that Democrats are getting more of the youth vote. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense when you are trying to attack and strip away our rights. But I'm wondering the Republicans in Tennessee and also across the country, I do agree with you that there are two kind of cultural clashes right here. But do you think they don't realize the consequences of doing something like expelling Justin Jones and Justin Pearson? Or, I mean, what was going through their mind, do you think?
No, I don't think they thought through the consequences at all. And I don't think that they thought that there would be any consequences. So look, it's hard for us, Victor. I don't know your background completely, but obviously you're not a white male, right? And I grew up as an immigrant in this country. I came when I was 8 years old, and my background is Muslim, etc. And so I'm not used to feeling entitled to have power.
Right.
And so it's hard for us to relate to them. For like those older like legislators in Tennessee, they probably, in their heart of hearts, they probably genuinely believe, no, we deserve all of the power. And how dare these guys, upstarts, let's put it super politely, okay, come in here and challenge our power. How dare they? They're probably like morally outraged that anyone would dare to challenge them. And everybody lives in their own bubble, right?
Yeah.
So in their bubble, they probably think 100% of America is super right wing, doesn't like black people talking up, doesn't like young people talking up, thinks that gun control is ridiculous. Everyone should be armed with a tank and an RPG, etc. And so when they got the blowback, they were probably shocked. Like, what? There are people in this country now that'll stand up for young black men? I swear to you that was probably a giant surprise to them.
Yeah. Well, it really feels like the zeitgeist is changing now and people are really gonna starting to wake up. But I want to ask you about the media because you're in the media and I know you think a lot about how to reach a different audience. You were previously at MSNBC and cable news is just not something that a lot of young people tune into. And if any do, I guess it's the very politically engaged and it's a very slim and I think unrepresentative slice of the youth electorate. But talk to us about what the Young Turks is doing and how you're able to reach young people.
Yeah, so look, we're in a funny kind of spot because we're the oldest running show in internet history. We're the first partner ever for YouTube, so we're the original YouTubers,
Yeah.
and so I've lived through the complete transformation of the media.
Yeah.
So when we started online, we left our shows on Sirius Satellite Radio and Air America Radio to do online video. And people thought that was nuts. They're like, what are you going to do? Cat videos on YouTube? No, everybody that's an adult listens to radio. I can't believe you're listening to radio. Now, AM radio, who's ever heard of AM radio, right? Like 98-year-olds listen to AM radio. That's crazy. I bet you a giant percentage of the young have never even heard of what AM radio is, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyways, so the TV folks used to look down on the online media, then they still do, and they will attack online media and use any excuse. Oh, the Chinese own TikTok. That's why we hate TikTok. Or is it because TikTok's eating your lunch? Okay.
Yeah.
And oh my God, there's disinformation on Facebook. Or was it at the time Facebook was eating your lunch? And now you don't mind Facebook as much. They're helping to promote you. And now you're worried about TikTok. And now all of a sudden there's all sorts of propaganda against TikTok. And it'll go on and on and on. Now, from the online media folks, though, now look, man, it's online media has got an enormous advantage nobody ever talks about, which is that there's no more gatekeepers. So you don't have to lie to get on air. And I know I worked at MSNBC. When I challenged the Democrats from the left, they said, you're not allowed to do that. Get back in line. And so you can't say things that are true on TV. You just can't if it upsets the powerful. Literally, the head of MSNBC told me, I was just in Washington and they're not happy with your tone. Okay. So that's old school. That's old school. But in the new school, so we've got this huge advantage nobody talks about because they're not incentivized to talk about it. But there is a disadvantage too, of course. The extremes grow. So you see QAnon. Oh yeah. And by the way, QAnon is 15% of the country. It's unbelievable. There's like 50 million people walking around thinking that Hillary Clinton wore a dead child's mask and then drank her blood and like insanity. Yeah. Total insanity, right? And the left is not immune from insanity, okay? And they'll get super mad at me for saying that because they've got their own orthodoxy.
Yeah.
If you don't say that everyone is Latinx and everyone wants to abolish prisons, et cetera, they'll say, oh my God, you're a racist, transphobe, sexist. We hate you. Dude, hold on. We're together on 99% of stuff. And by the way, you're 100% wrong. We were like, look, I use the example of Latinx because we said, I don't think Latinos want to be called that. I've lived in Miami and LA now for a quarter of a century. I have tons and tons of Latino friends. I've never once heard any of them say Latinx or that they like Latinx. But people on the left were like, no, you're anti-Latino. And then a poll comes out. Turns out 96% of Latinos agrees with that.
Yeah.
Right? But the online left, they're like, nope. Then Latinos are racist against Latinos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the left definitely is not immune from its problems, but I do think, I mean, outlets like yours and having people online and giving people information is so important because there really is no kind of apparatus like the right wing, like say Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, or Joe Rogan, because they've spent decades trying to build that up. How do you feel like, I mean, do you think that's shifting? And what do you think our side should be doing, not only to compete with them, but also to beat them in this information ecosystem?
Yeah. Well, look, I think Rogan's a completely different animal. So let me just take him out of the conversation. Yeah, lately I've been super upset with him. But he is not funded by right-wing billionaires. He was already famous from having TV shows and UFC, etc. And he got big by being somewhere in the middle, and it was an interesting show for a while, right?
Yeah.
Now I think he slipped away too right-wing, but that was his choice. That's a complicated audience capture question.
Mhm.
But take him out of that. When you get to the Ben Shapiros, the Dennis Pragers, the Dave Rubins, etc., all those guys are funded by right-wing billionaires in a massive way. Dennis Prager is the best example. He gets $20 to $25 million a year, every year, for free from right-wing billionaires to do propaganda.
Is there an
Okay.
equivalent on the left?
No, none. The great irony, Victor, is whenever you talk to a right winger, they're like, "Oh yeah, George Soros is funding everything."
Yeah.
Wait, first of all, Soros does fund things, right? He funds politicians who are
Yeah.
usually, by the way, corporate Democrats
Right, right.
who are opposed to us, right? So you got the wrong target. So second of all, he funds these giant organizations. But does he fund media? No,
No.
no. And there's a reason why there's no funding on the left, because the people with money on the left are usually corporate Democrats, and
Mhm.
they don't want the progressive message out. They kind of hate the progressive
Mm.
message, right? So there's only like 3 or 4 wealthy progressives in the whole country. Okay, when I say wealthy, I mean like billionaire, 100 million,
Uh,
et cetera, et cetera. So there is no one giving away money. Yeah, and if someone gives you money, it's an investment, right? And they want a return on that investment, and
mhm,
that's normal.
mhm.
That's business, right? But there's no one doing anyone favors on the left, whereas the right wing is showered with money,
Yeah.
showered with it, and it makes a giant difference. And then I look, the reason I took a little pot shot at the left, online left activists there, is because on top of that already toxic disparity, right,
Mhm,
where the
mhm.
left gets no support and the right gets tons of support, then the left rips each other apart on a
Yeah,
daily basis,
yeah,
right? And so, because honestly, I think it's driven by ego. And so people can say that's ironic. Look at you, Cenk, you host a show, etc. Fine, no problem, right? But yeah, there's tons of people that are like left-wing activists and
yeah,
so-called leaders, etc., who would much rather pull someone else on the left down than lift anyone up.
yeah.
And so when you have those two phenomena combining, the left's got massive institutional problems. We need a sensible leader that could pull us all together
Right.
and fight in the right direction, which is, it's not complicated. Fight in the direction of the American people. They need universal health care. We're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have universal health care. It's
Yeah.
crazy. They need higher wages. They need paid family leave. These proposals have 70, 80, 90% approval, and yet no one's doing it because the left is ripping each other apart. Corporate Democrats and Republicans don't want it anyway. They serve corporations, and the right wing are monsters. So the American people, 2/3 of whom are left wing, are left to fend for themselves with no
Mhm.
hope and no one to help them.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you, and I don't think there's enough time on this show to talk about all of the ways that the left is tearing each other apart, and the ways that, I mean, even activists. I haven't been big on Twitter. I've only been recently big on Twitter, or I guess have some sort of following. But even just seeing the comments, it's like there are more important things to talk about than perhaps whether or not you use Latinx or Latino or Latina. I mean, there are just bigger things to talk about. But I mean, it's sad to see how many people are tearing each other apart. But I mean, you do raise such an important point, which is we do need that person and that message that will bring every Democrat together, and really unite us. But when you don't have the money, how do you do that? I mean, how does that person or that message exist when there's just so many groups in the Democratic Party, when the tent is so large?
Yeah. Well, look, we've been able to pull off some miracles here at
Yeah,
TYT,
yeah,
and that's only because people wanted it, right? If you try to do a show that people didn't want, then you wouldn't have gotten these miracles, right?
Mhm.
But it turns out when mainstream media had left, progressives and said, we're going to ban you guys. I mean, right wing complains about shadow banning. What are you talking about? There's almost no progressives allowed on television. That's
Yeah.
that's not a
Yeah.
shadow ban. That's like
Yeah.
a real. I'm banned on CNN and MSNBC. So where's the shadow part? Okay, so since
Yeah.
progressives are not allowed anywhere else in media,
Mhm.
when we started doing a progressive show, people flocked to us. So right now we have over 22 billion lifetime views.
Hmm.
So that's
Wow.
nearly 3 times the size of the global population.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that means, and by the way, we had no money, so that's not fake. There was no marketing,
Right.
no paid media. No, those actual human beings watching all those videos. And so you can do it, but it is extraordinarily difficult. Somehow you got to piece together a little bit of money to be able to invest in the shows and the network, and then you got to get the network to work, and then you got to survive despite all the right-wing attacks, the mainstream attacks, the left-wing attacks,
Yeah. Yeah.
etc. And you got to keep pushing it forward no matter what anybody says, because the audience wants it. They
Mhm.
definitely,
Mhm.
definitely, definitely want it. And so look, but on the positive side, Victor, it's an honor. It's an honor to be able to speak for them.
Yeah.
To when they
Yeah.
say, "Hey, listen, go get them. We're gonna be paid members. We're gonna be viewers. We're gonna share your videos." Whatever it might be, for them to say, "You're our voice. Go kick ass for us."
Yeah.
That's an incredible honor, and we deeply appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you do a great job. The last question I have for you before I let you go, I know we're running short on time, but 2024 is rolling around the corner very quickly. What do you think is the biggest challenge or advice you would give Democrats heading into 2024 if they want to reach young voters and get us to turn out?
Well, look, honestly, pick a different candidate. I don't know that other people are going to love that message in Washington, but
Yeah.
um, people are not excited about Joe Biden, so that's not me saying that as a progressive. That's me saying it as an unbiased analyst looking at the polling. The
Mhm.
polling indicates the country doesn't want Joe Biden. I know that breaks people's hearts to hear that, okay? But this is the same exact thing we told you about Hillary Clinton,
Yeah.
and people didn't listen. They say, "Oh, no, 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 you're biased. You want Bernie." No, I'm like, look at the polling, guys. She loses to Trump in half the polls.
Yeah.
Bernie beats him by 12 points. Nope, nope. We love Hillary. No way. And then look at what happened. So, okay. So that's one point of it, Victor. But if Joe Biden goes out there and does this, he's now turning right wing because he thinks he's from the 1990s, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't turn right wing. Your base is younger voters. Are you
Yes.
insane? Are
Yes.
you insane? But the people in Washington are all 200 years old. And
That's true.
they're, oh, well, remember, look where Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. Tip O'Neill lived in the 1800s, brother. Okay, when there was no internet, there was no TV. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating, but you get it. So, look, here's what the country desperately, desperately needs: a populist progressive, because they don't want the establishment. And if
Mhm.
you force them to go pick between establishment and a
Yeah.
populist, they're going to pick a populist. And if the populace is a populist right winger, then we're all screwed. We're all screwed because
Yeah.
Trump doesn't even believe in democracy and he wants to
Mhm.
tear this country down. I mean, yesterday he's on Tucker Carlson praising the
Yeah.
worst dictators in the world because he genuinely thinks that's how leaders should be treated. They should be dictators and everybody should kiss their ass. We cannot go populist right. We've got to go populist left. But the people blocking us are the Democratic Party in DC. Look
Yeah.
here, I'll give you a last thing to give you a sense of it. Now, it's not going. It likely is not going to be him, obviously, because of the circumstances. But pre-stroke, what Fetterman was doing in Pennsylvania was perfect, right?
Yeah.
So give me a John Fetterman
Yep.
pre-stroke, and we'll win in a landslide
Yep.
across the country. Landslide, right? We needed a populist progressive to literally save the country.
Yeah, the one question I always get asked is, which campaign or which candidate do you think did a great job reaching out to young voters and their messaging? And I always say John Fetterman. I mean, it was, if we could replicate that across the country, that would be phenomenal.
And
Um,
we can. All you got to do
we
is
can,
elect
yep,
populist progressives who
exactly.
are populist on economic issues. The
Mhm.
cultural wars are a distraction. It's meant to rip us apart, and it's working. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean you don't
yep,
fight back against the monsters on the right wing that put out that hate and fear and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
but it does mean you focus on economic issues, which the whole country agrees with you on, and they need your help. Go give it to them.
Absolutely. Cenk, thank you so much for joining me this morning. You are phenomenal, and I appreciate your voice in this fight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Victor.
Thanks. Well, Cenk as always has an interesting perspective. I think for anyone who is like me who watches and thinks about information and how to reach young voters, I do think cable news is just not it. And I think Cenk and other people who are on different platforms are doing phenomenal work. Spaces like this one on YouTube. That's, I think, the future of the information ecosystem. And Democrats really need to get on here because that's how you're going to reach this young audience. Young voters, young people are not tuning into MSNBC, CNN, cable news as much as maybe we want them to. They just aren't. They're tuning out of that, and they want something new. They want something fresh. And I think YouTube provides a lot of this. So YouTube, other information ecosystems, Twitch, streaming platforms, those are all going to be the future of, I think, information, how we consume and listen to sources and people who give us information. So Cenk was very interesting. I hope you all enjoyed that episode. Just a few things that caught my attention yesterday. First is, I guess maybe not yesterday, but this morning, NPR said that it will suspend its use of Twitter. Basically, it said that it was that it didn't have credibility and that Twitter is trying to tarnish its reputation as a news organization. Some really interesting developments. I hope that people still tune into NPR, give it the funding that it needs. But this is, they called out Twitter directly. They basically said, what you're trying to do is runs antithetical to our values, and they're leaving the platform altogether. And this is what I fear a lot of news organizations and people are going to start doing, because Elon Musk is making the platform truly, I think, insufferable. And for stations like NPR, this was obviously a very personal decision for them, and they did what they thought was best. But I'll personally still be on it. I think all of us who still have a platform should still be on it, spreading as much facts and information as possible out there. But in terms of NPR, I hope everyone will tune in, still donate money, still give it the funding that it needs, because it's one of the last public funded broadcast networks out there, and I think they need all of our support. And yet, at the same time, while they label NPR a government-funded media or U.S. state-affiliated media, they aren't doing anything about media sources like Fox or other right-wing news organizations. So, I mean, it's Elon Musk trying to drive this platform down into a hole. They're hurting real news organizations and real journalists and helping elevate journalists and news organizations that don't need it and that don't deserve to be called real news. So that was something that I found interesting. But NPR will unfortunately no longer be on Twitter. One other thing that I thought was interesting yesterday was coming out of Manhattan, and we saw basically Jim Jordan subpoena Mark Pomerantz, who used to be at the DA's office. He's been attacking District Attorney Alvin Bragg for quite some time. And yesterday, Alvin Bragg responded with a very, very forceful 50-page lawsuit against Jim Jordan and the House Republicans, calling them and what they're doing a brazen and unconstitutional attack on the prosecution of Mr. Trump and a transparent campaign to intimidate and attack the District Attorney's office. This is him taking off his gloves, and I think it's quite glorious. Republicans, they just keep messing around. They just keep finding out. And good for Alvin Bragg for doing this. It takes a lot of, I think, bravery to do this and courage. And we can't overlook that this is a black district attorney in New York. Republicans are coming after him. They're coming after Fani Willis. We wish that we didn't live in this world in which, the rule of law was constantly under attack. But this is unfortunately what has to happen. And my respect goes to Alvin Bragg for doing this yesterday. We'll see what happens from here. A lot of people have, skepticism about whether or not this will succeed in court, but it's good that he was able to do this, and I think sends a strong message to Republicans that we aren't going to take what they try to do. We aren't going to fall for their BS, basically. So we'll see what happens on that front, but I have tremendous respect to Alvin Bragg for doing that. And one other thing that I thought was really interesting, not first, but one other thing I thought was interesting was Lauren Boebert. There's a new poll out in Colorado. Adam Frisch and Lauren Boebert are now tied in this new poll. And what's even more interesting is that in that new poll, among the people who recognize the names, Adam Frisch has a big lead. So basically, what that suggests is we just need to raise up Adam Frisch's name ID, and hopefully he will get up to Lauren Boebert's level and surpass her come 2024. But it's good news on that end, and I think for all of us, we can't take advantage of polling. Obviously, it's been wrong multiple times before, but Lauren Boebert and Adam Frisch, I really hope we can invest in that race, because it's one of those races, and we've had on Adam Frisch on this show before. It's one of those races that is actually winnable. We can actually defeat a MAGA right-wing extremist, and Adam Frisch is going to need all of our help going forward. So let's do some volunteering if you can. Check out his website, help out his campaign, because we're going to need to win that race in 2024 if we want to have a fighting chance in saving our democracy. So that's all the news I have for you today. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of On the Move with it'll be with Fred Gutenberg, who is a gun rights activist. He is an inspiration for myself, I know, for so many other people who just want to see our country free from gun violence and see our nation's laws reformed. So he will be joining me tomorrow on this show right at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then on Friday, I'll have on Fred Wellman, who will talk about the craziness from the Republican Party, Donald Trump's latest interview and the threat that he poses to our country. You don't want to miss that. And again, it'll be live at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. You don't want to miss it. Be sure to tune in, like, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I thank you all for watching this episode with Cenk Uygur. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.